The blood moon hung above the royal arena like a split-open heart, red light spilling across the snow and turning every frozen stone into a warning. Thousands of wolves filled the terraced stands, their breath steaming in the brutal cold, their howls rolling through the night like drums before an execution. At the center of it all stood Elara, Omega, orphan, servant, thin from years of hunger, trembling from the freezing wind, and hollow from a lifetime of rejection. Her wrists were chained. Silver bit her skin. The metal burned. The pack elders had dragged her onto the ceremonial platform as if she were an offering instead of a woman. Torn white fabric clung to her shoulders, stiff with snow and shame. Below the copper tang of blood from the shackles, her natural scent still rose in soft defiance. Vanilla, wildflowers, and rain. Pure, gentle, wrong according to everyone who had ever looked at her. "Lift your head," High Elder Merrick boomed, his fur-lined robes sweeping the stones. His scent carried expensive cologne over something metallic and cold, a polished cruelty dressed as nobility. "If the moon goddess has chosen to shame us with a broken female, then let the whole kingdom witness it." A ripple of cruel laughter spread through the crowd. Elara tried to obey. Her neck ached. Her knees shook. The freezing chains dragged against her skin as she lifted her chin toward the crimson moon. Broken. That word had followed her for 23 years. Born without a wolf. Unwanted by her own pack. Rejected by every male brought before her. Used as a maid in the home where she should have belonged. "Please, I haven't done anything." The plea barely left her lips before Lady Seraphine stepped forward. Beautiful, golden-haired, wrapped in white fox fur, smiling. Cruel. Seraphine was the future Luna of the Western Crown Pack, or so she believed. Her scent drifted through the icy air, expensive perfume over metallic silver, artificial sweetness hiding rot. Her hand closed around Alara's jaw hard enough to bruise. "You were born to embarrass us," Seraphine purred, her voice soft enough to make the words worse. "At least tonight, your humiliation can entertain someone." The crowd laughed again. Cold tore through Alara's lungs. The snow under her bare feet had numbed her toes long ago, but humiliation burned hotter than frostbite. She looked toward the royal dais, where the most feared ruler in the realm sat on a throne carved from black obsidian and wolf bones. Alpha King Kael. He was impossible to ignore. Massive even while seated, broad-shouldered, scarred, wrapped in black leather and a dark cloak lined with winter wolf fur. He looked carved from the mountain itself, hard, ancient, merciless. Violet eyes glowed beneath the crimson moon, strange and watchful. Heat seemed to coil around him despite the wind, as if winter feared him. Cedarwood, pine, smoke. His scent cut through the arena and struck her harder than the cold. Every head lowered when he rose. Chains rattled. Drums stopped. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. King Kael descended the dais with slow, heavy steps that echoed across the stone. He did not rush. He did not need to. Power moved with him like a living thing. Alara's pulse stumbled. A king coming closer had never meant rescue in her life. Only judgment. Only pain. He stopped directly in front of her. Too close. Too hot. She could feel the warmth rolling from his body over her frozen skin, shocking after so many minutes in the white killing air. She refused to look up at first. Then his knuckles tipped her chin. Violet eyes locked onto hers. A crack of recognition split the night. Kael inhaled once. Sharply. The arena erupted. "Impossible," one elder gasped. "No," another whispered. "Not her." The king's voice hit the platform like thunder. Elara of the Western Crown Pack. Her name had never sounded like that before. Not like a curse. Not like an insult. Like a verdict written in the stars. He turned to the crowd, every word edged in command. "She is mine, my fated mate." Silence. Utter silence. The entire kingdom froze beneath the blood moon. Seraphine staggered back as if struck. Merrick's face drained of color. Somewhere in the stands, someone whimpered. Then chaos burst open, gasps, snarls, disbelief, fear. Elara could barely hear it. Mate. No. No, no, no. A king's mate meant chains of a different kind. A throne she did not want. A life among wolves who already hated her. A bond she had never asked for. 23 years of being told she was nothing did not vanish because the moon painted her in red light. Kael's hand remained under her chin, steady and scorching. Come with me, he commanded, low and absolute. She stared at him, at the scar cutting through his brow, at those violet eyes, at the black danger of him, at the warmth she should have wanted. And she did the unthinkable. No. The words scraped out raw. The crowd gasped. Kael's gaze sharpened. Elara swallowed blood and fear and lifted her voice higher, though her body shook from cold, pain, and terror. I reject the Alpha King. The kingdom fell into a silence, so deep it felt holy. No one moved. No one breathed. Under the red blaze of the blood moon, the bond trembled. The legends had always warned that refusing a sacred claim awakened old things. Forgotten things. Cursed things. The wind screamed. Then the first arrow flew. Zip. It came from the upper shadows, black-fletched and tipped with cursed silver. Kael twisted, too fast for the eye to follow, and the shaft slammed into the stone where his chest had been an instant earlier. Masked assassins poured from the terraces. Clang, roars, screams. The crowd exploded into panic. Kael shoved himself between Elara and the attack. Down. Another blade flashed. Not toward him. Toward her. Elara saw the silver too late. Pain detonated under her ribs as a curved dagger punched through flesh. Freezing agony spread instantly, poison and cold racing through her veins. Her scream shredded the air. Kael roared. It was not a human sound. A black force slammed outward from him, sending 3 assassins flying across the platform. Bones cracked. Steel clanged. Wolves snarled and leaped in every direction. The king's claws tore through masks and armor as he fought, but Elara could feel herself dying. Cold. So much cold. The cursed silver turned her blood to ice. She crumpled to her knees, chains biting harder as the world tilted. Snow drank her blood. Above the metallic stink, her own scent faded, vanilla and rain drowned by poison. She looked down at the wound and saw dark silver veins crawling beneath her skin. Merrick was backing away. Seraphine, too. Neither looked shocked enough. They knew. They knew the assassins had come for her. Kael killed the final attacker with one savage strike, then dropped to his knees in the snow beside her. His hands, huge and hot, caught her before she hit the stone. Cedar wood, pine, and smoke wrapped around her, impossibly warm against the death cold spreading through her body. Stay with me, he growled. Her lips trembled. Why? Because she was broken. Because kings did not kneel for girls like her. Because this had to be some crueler game. His jaw clenched. He looked at the silver poison darkening beneath her skin. Something grim and ancient crossed his face. No healer can stop this, he rumbled. The elders began shouting behind him. Your Majesty, do. That ritual is forbidden. You'll bind yourself. Kael ignored them all. He looked only at her. She thought she was being hunted. She didn't know she was being found. Then, before the whole kingdom, Alpha King Kael tore open his own wrist with his fangs. Blood spilled black-red in the moonlight. Gold shimmered beneath it. Royal blood. Ancient blood. Forbidden blood. He pressed his bleeding wrist to her mouth. Drink. She jerked weakly away. No. Drink, he commanded, voice shaking the stones. Warmth hit her lips first. Then power. Then fire. His blood poured over her tongue like molten life. Wild, burning, impossible. It tasted of cedarwood, pine, smoke, storms, iron, and something older than memory. The bond snapped around them with a force that made the platform crack. Elara cried out as heat flooded her veins, attacking the silver poison. Symbols flared beneath her skin in streaks of white and gold, blazing across her throat and wrists. The crowd screamed. Kael's other arm wrapped around her, holding her upright as the ritual took hold. His chest was a furnace against her frozen body. She could hear his heartbeat, feel it, hear wolves whimpering and bowing all around them. "You are not dying," he decreed. The poison fought. His blood fought harder. Elara's vision blurred red, black, white. A voice brushed her mind. "Breathe." She gasped. Not spoken aloud. Inside her head. His voice. The world shuddered. The pain peaked. Then darkness crashed down and took her. The last thing she felt was the king lifting her into his arms as if she weighed nothing at all, carrying her out beneath the screaming blood moon while snow swirled around them like torn feathers. Warmth woke her first. Not the cruel fever of poison. Safe warmth. Blankets cocooned her in soft layers. A fire crackled nearby, each pop and hiss brushing against the edge of sleep. The room smelled of cedarwood, pine, and wood smoke, grounded and old with a faint thread of herbs steeping in hot water. Beneath it she caught herself, vanilla, wildflowers, and rain still there but changed somehow. Fuller, brighter, alive. Her eyes opened. Dark beams crossed a high ceiling above her. Golden morning light spilled through frost-rimmed windows. A stone hearth blazed across the room, filling the cabin chamber with steady heat. Thick black furs covered the bed beneath her. A carved wardrobe stood in one corner, a copper basin in another. Nothing about the place felt cheap or hurried. It felt hidden, guarded. Luxurious. She bolted upright too fast. Pain ripped through her side. A rough hand caught her shoulder. Slowly. "Kael." He sat beside the bed in a plain black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, exposing scars, veins, and the half-healed line where he had torn open his wrist. In daylight he looked even larger, well over 6.5 feet, all brutal strength and controlled violence. His dark hair brushed his collar. Violet eyes watched her with unsettling focus. Up close, the scent of him deepened. Cedarwood after rain, pine resin, banked smoke, mountain cold held back by heat. She recoiled against the pillows. He set a wooden tray across her lap. "Broth, bread, tea." "Eat." Her mouth parted. "Why am I here?" "Because you were dying." Her fingers shook as she touched her side. The wound was bandaged, warm. No silver burn remained. Instead, under the linen, something faintly pulsed. "You," her voice failed. "You gave me your blood." "I did." "That ritual is outlawed." "Yes." "Why?" His stare did not waver. "Because I refuse to let them kill you." Warmth from the fire licked her face. Outside the window, snow fell in delicate white veils over a forest of black pines. Inside, fear and confusion twisted with something more dangerous. Relief. Safety. She hated how much her body noticed his heat, how her breath eased when he stood near. She pulled the blanket tighter. "Where are we?" "My territory." "You have territory." A dry sound left him, almost a laugh. "Barely." He poured tea into a mug and handed it to her. His fingers brushed hers. Heat flashed up her arm so fast she nearly dropped it. The liquid smelled of mint and winter root. Warmth slid through her throat as she drank. He watched until she took a piece of bread. Only then did he move away, packing toward the hearth with the heavy grace of a predator. 10 years ago, he rumbled, staring into the flames, I was king in truth, not merely in title. She frowned. You still are king. His mouth hardened. To the realm, perhaps, to the throne, no. He reached to the mantel and lifted a framed portrait. When he handed it to her, she saw a younger version of him standing before the same obsidian throne from the ceremony. Beside him stood a regal woman in gold and white. Around them, 6 alpha houses bowed. My father died, Kael continued. I took the crown at 26. 3 months later, someone poisoned the royal council. Silver nightshade in the ceremonial wine. Cold slid down her spine, despite the fire's heat. They accused me, he finished. Claimed I wanted absolute rule. claimed I silenced anyone who opposed me. Elara looked up. You didn't. His violet eyes flashed. No. He crossed to a heavy desk near the window and spread out old papers, documents, decrees, sealed letters, a map. His scent thickened with smoke and old anger. Merrick led the accusation, Kael growled. The Western and Northern Alphas joined him. Seraphine's father provided false witnesses. They staged a trial in one night and decreed exile by dawn. Elara's stomach clenched. Why not kill you? They tried. He tugged down the collar of his shirt. A silver scar crossed his collarbone like lightning frozen under skin. Poison in the holding cells. I survived. Barely. My loyal guards smuggled me out before the execution squad arrived. Warm air from the fire could not stop her shiver. And since then, I built this refuge in the Frostpine Wilds, gathered the wolves who still believed me, waited. For 10 years. For proof. He laid a final document before her. Mining rights. Land sales. Royal seal. Her breath caught. The papers detailed contracts between the Western Crown Pack, the Northern clans, and private mercenary houses. Entire mountain valleys had been sold for silver extraction. Villages marked on the maps had been cleared. Some territories bore symbols she did not recognize, old crescent marks beside springs and burial grounds. What is this? She whispered. Kael's jaw tightened. The conspiracy was never only about my throne. Beneath the sacred mountain lands lies silver ore and moonstone veins. Merrick and his allies sold ancestral territories to outside syndicates. To mine deeper, they needed the old bloodlines erased. She looked closer. Pup sanctuaries. Widow dens. Healing springs. Children relocated. A line in one contract froze her blood. Non-compliant bloodline remnants to be removed. Removed, she breathed. Slaughtered, Kael corrected. The warmth of the room vanished for a moment. Elara smelled again the metallic cold of Merrick's cologne, Seraphine's silver perfume, the cursed blade in her flesh. Her throat closed. Why would they target me? He was silent too long. Then he pulled open a drawer and removed a velvet cloth. Inside lay a medallion blackened by time, gold crescent, white wolf, crown of thorns and light. The symbol on it matched the glowing marks that had flashed on her skin. When my scouts brought your bloodied dress from the arena, Kael murmured, they found this stitched into the hem. Elara stared. I never owned that. No, he rumbled. Your mother did. Her hands went numb. She served in the royal nursery before she vanished, he continued. Official record claims she died birthing a wolfless child. Unofficial record claims she fled with the last surviving heir of House Orlaia. The room seemed to tilt. House Orlaia. She knew the name only as a bedtime terror older servants used to hush pups, an extinct royal line that once judged corrupt alphas and answered only to the moon goddess. That's a legend, she whispered. Kael crouched in front of her, massive even at eye level, his heat pressing back the chill trying to swallow her. No, it's history buried by traitors. His gaze dropped to her bandaged side. My blood did not create those marks, it woke them. Elara's lungs refused to work. No, I don't have a wolf. You do. I never shifted. You were sealed. By whom? He held her stare. By someone trying to keep you alive. The fire cracked behind him. Snow drifted beyond the windows. Warmth filled the room, but her mind raced through every freezing humiliation of her life with a new horror. What if none of it had been fate? What if it had all been engineered? Kael rose and turned toward the window. I need a witness with living claim to what they stole. I need the truth the realm can't ignore. She clutched the medallion. Gold warmed in her palm. He faced her again. Help me reclaim my throne. No grand speech. No kneeling request. Only that. Yet the words landed heavier than any vow. Elara looked at the contracts, the poisoned council, the sold lands. The children marked for removal. The possibility that her entire life had been a cage built by deliberate hands. She thought of Seraphine smiling while she bled. Of Merrick calling her death noble. Of chains. Of kitchens. Of floors scrubbed on frozen knees. Her voice came out small at first, still carrying the ruins of the girl on the platform. If I help you, what happens when you win? Kael stepped close enough for cedarwood and pine to wrap around her, warm and grounding. Then no one will ever chain you again. Hope rose sharp and fragile. Dangerous. She looked up at him, at the scarred face and violet eyes and impossible heat. And if we fail? His expression went hard as obsidian. Then we die standing. The old Elara wanted to hide. The one shaped by humiliation, cold floors and empty bowls. But beneath her skin something had awakened in the blood moon fire. A pulse, a hum, a distant howl. She set the mug aside and swung her legs over the bed. Her body still hurt, her heart still feared him. The room was warm, but vengeance burned hotter. When do we start? For the first time, a true reaction crossed Kael's face. Not amusement. Approval. Now. The training yard behind the frostpine cabin overlooked a valley buried in white. Pines rose like black spears against the winter sky, and each morning the cold came down from the peaks sharp enough to cut. Elara woke to warmth in the cabin, to the scent of cedarwood and smoke, to Kael's presence near enough that her pulse betrayed her. Then she stepped into the freezing dawn and let him break every lie she had been taught about weakness. 3 weeks changed everything. 3 weeks of snow stinging her cheeks. 3 weeks of bruised palms and aching thighs. 3 weeks of Kael's clipped commands. Again. She lunged with the practice blade. He disarmed her in 2 movements. Clang. The wooden weapon flew into a drift. Frustration burned hot under her skin. You enjoy this. He stalked closer, black hair dusted with snow, steam rising from his shoulders in the cold. No. He pressed another blade back into her hand. I enjoy watching you stop apologizing. His scent cedarwood, pine, smoke, wrapped around her as he corrected her grip from behind, big hands closing over hers. Heat shot through her arms. Her own scent, vanilla, wildflowers, and rain, lifted helplessly in answer. Lower stance, he rumbled near her ear. Trust your weight. I'm trying. You're surviving, different thing. She spun, struck, nearly clipped his shoulder. A spark of triumph flashed. Kael's mouth tilted, barely. The mornings belonged to combat, afternoons to history, evenings to strategy before the fire, where maps and contracts spread across the table while the cabin glowed warm against the frozen world outside. He taught her the names of the old bloodlines, showed her where villages had vanished, traced silver mining routes funded by the same Alpha houses that had exiled him. And every 5 or 6 days, hope rose just high enough to be crushed again. A frostpine scout returned with news that one witness had vanished on the road south. Another cabin sheltering orphaned pups had burned. A healer carrying records of old blood seals had been found dead with silver under her nails. Each cruelty hit lower than the last. Each one hardened Elara further. One night, while sleet lashed the shutters and warm firelight painted gold across the walls, she found Kael standing before a chest in the corner. Inside lay a folded black banner and a circlet of dark iron inlaid with moonstone. His shoulders looked too still, too heavy. She approached slowly, her bare feet silent on the rug. The room was warm, thick with cedarwood smoke and her own rain-soft scent after bathing. Was that your crown? He did not turn. Yes. Why keep it? Because one day I'll place it where it belongs. And where is that? He finally looked at her. Violet eyes glowed in the firelight, banked pain under iron control. On a kingdom that stops feeding its daughters to politics. Her chest tightened. He set the crown back in the chest and shut the lid. You should sleep. I'm not tired. You're limping. You noticed. I notice everything about threats. And what am I now? His gaze dropped to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. Heat thickened between them. Outside, the cold clawed at the walls. Inside, the room seemed to shrink around the fire and the space between them. "Not a threat," he murmured. Her breath caught. "Then what?" A long pause. Then, almost too low to hear, "A reason." Hope rose. Soft, terrifying. It lasted less than a day. Because the first shift began at dawn. She had just stepped into the yard when heat punched through her spine. Not warmth. Burning. Violent. Her knees buckled in the snow. Kael was at her side instantly. "Elara." "It hurts," her voice cracked. His nostrils flared. Cedarwood and smoke wrapped around the sudden flood of her scent, vanilla turning wild, rain turning storm, wildflowers sharpened by something electric. "The seal is breaking." She clawed at the snow. Steam rose from her skin despite the freezing air. "Make it stop." "I can't." Pain ripped through her shoulders. Crack. She screamed. Bones shifted. Spine arched. Ribs tightened and reshaped with brutal precision. Her hands convulsed, fingers curling as nails lengthened. Heat roared through marrow and muscle until she thought she might split apart. Kael dropped to one knee before her, huge hands framing her face, forcing her to focus on his violet eyes. His touch burned hot in the snowstorm. "Breathe." "I'm dying." "No," his voice slammed through the panic. "You're becoming." Another crack. Her back bowed, her cry tore into a snarl. Fur exploded over her skin in a wave of blinding white. The world changed. Sound hit first. Pine needles whispering 50 yards away, ice settling on branches, heartbeats from the guards by the tree line, the howl of wind through the valley. Scent came next in overwhelming layers: snow, cedarwood, smoke, stone, frost, distant deer, old blood on Kael's training knives, and her own wild, clean fragrance, now powerful enough to make the wolves watching whimper and bow. She staggered upright on 4 legs. White. Not cream, not gray. Brilliant white as moonlit justice. Gasps broke around the yard. One guard dropped to both knees. Another crossed his fist over his heart. Kael stared at her, as if he had just watched prophecy step out of legend. "Moon above," one warrior whispered. "A white wolf." Elara looked down at herself in shock. Massive paws, thick winter fur glowing against the snow, strength coiled through limbs she had never known existed. She was not small here, not broken, not helpless. Kael rose slowly, then the black blaze took him. His shift came in a rush of muscle and shadow. Crack, snap, roar. One heartbeat later, a monstrous black wolf stood before her, enormous and scarred, violet eyes burning from within midnight fur. Protection incarnate. He stepped close, touched his nose to hers. The bond ignited so fiercely she reeled. His voice brushed her mind, deep and certain. "You are not weak." Elara froze. Mind link. Real. She looked into his eyes and somehow answered without words. "How are you doing this?" "Because you're mine to hear." Warmth flooded her chest, so intense it nearly hurt. The guards had all bowed now. Even the oldest among them. Kael shifted back to human form first, breath steaming in the cold. He did not look embarrassed by his nakedness, only awed. He grabbed a fur cloak and draped it over his shoulders before approaching her again. "White wolves were called the bringers of justice," he explained, voice rough with something close to reverence. "House Orlia judged corrupt alphas, broke false commands, and answered ancient law. They were exterminated because no tyrant could rule while one still breathed." Elara's heart thundered. In her mind, pieces aligned. Her mother's fear, the hidden medallion, the curse of rejection, the assassination. "They hunted me because of this." "Yes." She looked over the valley, over the kneeling warriors, over the white world suddenly sharper and brighter than anything she had ever known. Then instinct surged. "Run." Without warning, she leaped. Snow exploded beneath her paws as she tore across the valley. The cold no longer felt like death. It felt clean, alive. The air cut through her fur like silver light. Behind her, a delighted black roar split the morning, and Kael's wolf gave chase. They ran over drifts and fallen logs, through black pines heavy with snow, over a frozen creek veined in glass. White and black, justice and protection. Her laughter came out as a wild bark inside the bond. For the first time in her life, movement did not hurt. Existing did not hurt. He caught up beside her. Not ahead. Beside. Together they burst into a clearing where sunlight struck the snow so brightly it looked gold at the edges. Elara skidded to a halt, sides heaving. Kael's black wolf circled once, then nudged beneath her throat in a gesture so intimate her pulse raced. Mate. The truth rang through every inch of her transformed body. Not forced by ceremony. Not by the king's claim. By recognition. By scent. By soul. Rain and wild lilacs, his mind whispered, tasting her essence through the bond. She answered without meaning to. Cedarwood, pine, smoke. His wolf rumbled with dark satisfaction. When they returned to the cabin hours later, flushed with cold and heat and something far more dangerous, hope rose again. And this time, it lasted until sunset. Because that evening, a courier arrow slammed into the frostpine gate, carrying a child's bracelet braided in white thread. One of the sanctuary pups from the sold mountain lands had been taken. Attached was a single note. Bring the white wolf to Blackstone, or the children bleed first. The warm cabin went silent. Kael crushed the note in his fist. Elara stared at the bracelet in his palm, at the tiny blue bead attached to it, and felt something new rise beneath her skin. Not fear. Judgment. Blackstone Pass lay 2 hours east, where the mountain road narrowed between frozen cliffs and abandoned silver carts rotted under snow. Kael took 6 warriors. Elara rode at his side beneath a wool cloak, her body warm from the wolf now living awake under her skin. The air was viciously cold, and each breath carried warning. Pine, old iron, distant blood, and the fresh line of her own scent threading the wind like rain over wildflowers. We go in, recover the child, and leave, Kael commanded. She glanced at him in the saddle. Moonlight silvered the scar across his jaw. You never sound convinced by simple plans. Because simple plans die first. His scent deepened, cedarwood and smoke edged with coming violence. Warmth radiated from him even through leather and winter layers. Riding close to him felt like leaning toward a fire in the middle of a blizzard. Blackstone appeared as a jagged silhouette against the storm-dark sky. Mining sheds crouched under snowdrifts. Rusted tracks vanished into a tunnel mouth reinforced with black timber. No lights, no movement. Too quiet. Elara's skin prickled. Kael lifted a fist. Halt. A whimper drifted on the wind. Child. Then came the metallic taint of trap wire, and the cloying stench of expensive perfume over silver poison. Seraphine. Elara's stomach dropped. She's here. Kael's eyes flashed violet. Stay behind me. No. His look cut toward her. The old Elara would have obeyed. The new one slid from the horse, boots crunching in the snow, and met his stare. When do we start? She challenged, echoing her own vow. A heartbeat passed. Then he gave one curt nod. They advanced. 3 steps into the yard, arrows rained from the roofs. Zip, zip, zip. Down, Kael roared. Chaos erupted. Frostpine warriors shifted mid-leap, black and gray wolves colliding with masked mercenaries pouring from the mine entrance. Steel clanged. Snarls ripped through the cold. Elara rolled behind a cart as a silver bolt embedded in the wheel above her shoulder. A child cried from inside the tunnel. Rage flashed white-hot. She shifted on instinct. Crack heat fur. Her white wolf burst into the battlefield like winter vengeance. Mercenaries froze at the sight of her. One stumbled backward. Another dropped his weapon and tried to run. Kael, in wolf form, slammed into a line of attackers hard enough to send bodies skidding across ice. Black fur, violet eyes, roaring dominance. Elara darted between crates and lunged at a guard reaching for a cage. Her jaws closed on his arm. He screamed. She twisted, threw him into a support beam, and the beam splintered with a crack. Inside the tunnel, lantern light flickered over silver cages and stacked documents weighted with stone. A little girl cowered inside one cell, maybe 8 years old, cheeks wet, hands bleeding where she had clawed the bars. Elara shifted back, breathless and shaking from cold air on hot skin. She tore the lock free with both hands. "It's all right," she whispered. "I've got you." The child looked at the white marks, now glowing faintly on Elara's wrists. "Are you the moon wolf?" "Something like that." She lifted the girl into her arms. Then Seraphine stepped from the shadows in a white battle coat, blade in hand, smiling that same elegant smile from the arena. Her perfume saturated the tunnel, expensive floral wrought over metallic silver. "I hoped you survive," Seraphine purred. "I wanted to watch this part myself." Elara moved the child behind her. "You sent assassins." Seraphine tilted her head. "Her death was a noble gift, one broken servant to secure a kingdom. You should have thanked us." Heat blazed through Elara's veins. Behind Seraphine, tables lined the cavern wall, ledgers, contracts, maps, transport schedules. Cages beyond them held more than mining tools. Tiny blankets, child-sized chains. Her blood turned to ice, then fire. "You took children." Seraphine's expression cooled. "Bloodline verification requires samples." A roar shook the tunnel. Kael crashed through 2 guards at once, shifting human as he rose, chest streaked with blood not all his own. "Elara." Seraphine slashed for the child. Elara pivoted. Too slow. The blade bit her forearm. Cold silver pain flashed. Kael's face turned murderous. He hit Seraphine with enough force to crack stone, sending her across the cavern floor. She slammed into a table. Contracts flew like wounded birds. Mercenaries rushed in behind her. "Take the ledgers," Kael commanded his warriors. "Everything." The battle narrowed into short, brutal bursts. Zip. Clang. Crack. Elara shoved the child toward a frostpine guard. "Run." Then she grabbed the nearest ledger and stuffed it under her cloak. Another document slid loose across the floor. She snatched it, too. Land sale authorization. Royal interim seal. Marek's signature. Seraphine rose bleeding from the lip, eyes wild now. Gone was the polished grace. In its place stood desperation. "Kill her," she shrieked. "Kill the white wolf." A mercenary lunged. Elara ducked. Snapped shaft. Swept legs. He hit the ground hard. She drove her elbow down and ripped the silver chain from his neck, an insignia matching the one on the assassins at the arena. Proof. Kael tore through the last line of guards, but one mercenary fired from the catwalk above. Zip. Kael twisted too late. The bolt slammed into his shoulder. He staggered. Kael. Cold terror knifed through her. He ripped the shaft free with a savage grunt, but silver hissed at the wound. Blood darkened his black shirt. Cedarwood and smoke sharpened with pain. Seraphine saw her chance. She darted toward a side exit with a leather case clutched to her chest. "The records," Kael barked. Elara ran. Out of the cavern, across the snow, down the track where wind howled through abandoned mining carts. Seraphine moved fast, but fury moved faster. Elara tackled her into a drift. Both women rolled, white fur cloak tangling with black braid, fists and nails and teeth in the freezing dark. Seraphine drew a silver pin from her hair and stabbed. Elara caught her wrist. They strained. Snow burned her back. The female antagonist smiled through split lips. "Do you know what your mother begged for before we silenced her?" Everything stopped. "What?" Elara gasped. Seraphine's eyes glittered. "Mercy." Elara screamed and slammed Seraphine's hand into the ice until the pin fell away. Then she ripped open the leather case. Inside lay the final proof. Original contracts, council payment ledgers, a sealed confession from the royal cupbearer Naming Merrick, and a list of surviving bloodline children marked for transfer. Cultural genocide written in ink. Kael reached them, breathing hard, one hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. Heat rolled off him despite the wound. He yanked Seraphine upright by the throat. "For the cages," he growled. She clawed at his wrist. "You can't prove anything." Elara held the documents up between them. Warm blood dripped down her arm. Snow swirled silver around her boots. "Oh," she breathed, voice changing under the cold sky. "I think we can." For one fragile hour, hope soared. They had the child. They had the contracts. They had the confession. Then the mountains answered with a horn blast from the ridge. 1, 2, 3. Encircled. Dozens of torches flared to life above Blackstone Pass. Merrick's war banners unfurled in the storm. And Kael, already poisoned again by silver, sank to one knee in the snow. The ridge poured wolves. Too many. Black armor, Western crown sigils, Northern mercenaries. The freezing wind drove snow into everyone's eyes while torches hissed gold against the dark. Elara could smell blood, silver, fear, and beneath it all the hateful metallic polish of Merrick's presence approaching from above. Kael swayed beside her. "No," she whispered. His face had gone too pale beneath the blood. The silver bolt wound smoked faintly. Even standing, he seemed to drag the weight of the mountain on his shoulders. Still, he pushed the contracts into her hands. "Take them," he commanded. "I'm not leaving you. Take them." His voice hit with alpha force, making nearby wolves bow despite themselves. Not her. Never her. The white blood in her broke the command like a wave snapping chains. Merrick descended the path flanked by guards, fur cloak immaculate, boots untouched by the filth of battle. Expensive cologne drifted over metallic silver, cold and false as ever. Beside him limped Seraphine, lips swollen, eyes venomous. "How touching," Merrick boomed. "The exile king bleeding for a servant." Elara stepped in front of Kael. Not hiding. Shielding. Wind tore at her hair, the papers shook in her grip. "You sold children." Merrick's smile did not move his eyes. "I secured the realm." "You murdered the council." "I purified it." "You hunted me." His gaze slid over her like a butcher choosing a knife. "You were a mistake left alive too long." Something inside her almost broke. Not from fear. From the scale of it. The years stolen. The mother lost. The children caged. Kael dying because he had chosen her. All hope seemed to collapse under the freezing sky until it felt foolish to have ever believed in victory. Kael's hand brushed the back of her knee where she stood before him. A tiny touch. Warm. Present. His voice entered her mind, weaker now but steady. "Breathe." Her eyes stung. Merrick lifted a gloved hand. Archers drew. Seraphine smiled. "Kneel, broken girl, and perhaps I'll let him die quickly." For one heartbeat, despair hollowed Elara clean. Then the bracelet of the rescued child slipped from her cloak and landed in the snow at her feet. The tiny blue bead flashed. And memory rose. A little girl whispering, "Are you the moon wolf?" A kingdom kneeling to a white form in the snow. Her mother sewing a gold medallion into a hem with shaking hands. Kael's voice in her head, "You are not weak." The bond blazed. Not from him. From her. Symbols erupted across her arms and throat in white and gold fire. The cold retreated as heat surged through every vein. The contracts in her hand lifted on a wind that had not existed a second earlier. Wolves on the ridge whimpered. Some dropped to their knees without understanding why. Merrick's smile faltered. Elara straightened slowly, no longer pleading, no longer shaking. "No," she commanded, and even the storm seemed to pause. "You kneel." 2 nights later, the royal midwinter gala glittered inside the obsidian palace like the kingdom had never known suffering. Crystal chandeliers blazed warm gold above polished black floors. Nobles spun in silk and jewels, while musicians played as though children had not been dragged through mines, as though blood had not frozen on mountain passes, as though lies had not sat upon the throne for 10 years. Perfume clouded the ballroom, amber, spice, wine, but beneath it all Elara still caught the sharp metallic trace of betrayal. She entered in silver disguise. A hooded white cloak, black mask, one gloved hand on Kael's arm. He had healed enough to stand, though the silver wound still lined his shoulder under the formal black coat. Massive, scarred, unmissable. Heat rolled from him through the cloth into her hand, grounding. His scent, cedarwood, pine, smoke, cut through every artificial fragrance in the hall. Beside it, her own signature rose calm and clean, vanilla wildflowers, rain before a storm. 3 weeks ago, she would have lowered her eyes. Tonight she lifted her chin. The herald at the door frowned. Names. Kael removed his mask. Gasps burst outward. The music died mid-note. "Your king," he rumbled. Panic rippled through the ballroom like oil catching fire. Nobles stumbled back. Glass shattered. The hall doors slammed open behind them as frostpine warriors flooded the perimeter in black ceremonial armor. At the dais, Merrick surged to his feet from the interim throne, fury flushing his face. Seraphine stood beside him in a gold gown cut like a blade, beauty sharpened by hate. "You dare crawl back here," Merrick boomed. Kael's voice rolled deeper. "I did not crawl." He guided Elara forward, into the center of the ballroom. Warm lights blazed overhead. Cold eyes watched from every side. She felt both at once. Merrick sneered, "And you bring a servant as spectacle." Elara removed her mask. The nearest nobles recoiled. Recognition spread. The broken girl. The arena survivor. Impossible. Seraphine's painted mouth twisted. "You should have stayed dead." Kael reached inside his coat and flung a leather packet across the polished floor. It hit the base of the dais and burst open. Contracts scattered. Ledgers slid. Seals flashed red, gold, and black. The confession letter unfurled last. "I formally accuse High Elder Merrick, Lady Seraphine, and the allied Alpha houses of regicide conspiracy, unlawful exile, child trafficking, bloodline extermination, and sale of sacred lands," Kael decreed. Silence crashed down. Then uproar. "What nonsense. Those seals are real. Children. Impossible." Elara bent, lifted the confession, and raised it high. Her voice rang clear through the hall, no trace of the pleading servant left. "Signed by the royal cupbearer, witnessed by 2 scribes now dead, payment ledgers attached, silver mining contracts attached, transfer orders for children attached." Seraphine laughed too brightly. "Forgery." Elara flung the pages onto the banquet table before the closest nobles. Ink and seals stared back at them in undeniable lines. "Read," she commanded. An old Alpha reached trembling fingers toward one ledger, his face blanched. "Moon protect us." Merrick slammed his fist against the throne arm. "Guards, seize them." Armored wolves rushed forward. Kael stepped ahead of Elara. "Bow." One word. Alpha command exploded across the hall. Half the guards crashed to their knees instantly, snarling in helpless submission. The weaker nobles folded with them. Glass rattled. Candles flickered. Even some allied Alphas dropped their gaze. Merrick roared in outrage and forced himself upright through the pressure. "I am your regent." "No," Kael growled. "You are a thief." Seraphine drew twin silver blades from beneath her skirts. Of course she had come armed. The first guard broke the command and lunged. Zip. A hidden dart fired from the balcony. Kael swatted the attacker aside. Clang. Steel rang through the ballroom. Panic shattered decorum. Nobles screamed and fled behind pillars while frostpine warriors collided with palace guards. Tables overturned. Platters crashed. Music stands splintered. Short bursts. Vast breath. Hot blood. Cold metal. Elara moved. A guard charged. She ducked. Palm strike. Elbow. Sweep. He hit the floor. Seraphine came next, silver flashing in both hands, gold skirts swirling like flame. "You stole my life," she shrieked. Elara blocked with a ceremonial spear, ripped from the wall. Clang. Seraphine slashed left. Elara twisted. Blade skimmed her sleeve. Cold bit skin. She drove the spear butt forward. Seraphine stumbled back into a fallen table, snarling. Across the hall, Kael met Merrick in a collision that cracked the marble steps. Roar. Merrick shifted halfway, claws bursting from hands, jaw distending with alpha strength fueled by corruption and panic. Kael welcomed it. Black power rolled off him in crushing waves. He was bigger, faster, ancient wrath wrapped in human muscle. They slammed through a pillar. Stone burst. Nobles shrieked. Elara barely saw it, because Seraphine attacked again. Silver blade. High slash. Low cut. Elara retreated over broken crystal, lungs burning, room too hot and too cold at once. Her opponent moved with aristocratic precision, every strike trained, every smile vicious. "You were supposed to die nameless in snow," Seraphine hissed. "Your mother ruined everything by running." Elara froze. Too long. Seraphine's hilt smashed into her temple. Pain flashed white. She hit one knee. The ballroom spun. Warm blood slid down her cheek. Seraphine grabbed her hair and yanked her head back for the watching court. "Look at her," she cried. "This is your miracle, this servant, this stray. Her death will be a noble gift." Something primal snapped. Not in pain. In certainty. Elara's gaze lifted to the chandeliers, where the blood moon shone through the glass dome overhead, red light spilling down over the hall. The marks on her skin erupted brighter than flame. Heat roared. Bones cracked. Seraphine let go too late. White fur exploded. The transformation tore through the ballroom like judgment descending. One heartbeat, Elara was on one knee. The next, a massive white wolf stood in the center of the gala, luminous under moon and crystal, eyes blazing gold-white with ancient law. The entire hall dropped. Nobles collapsed to their knees. Guards whimpered and bowed. Even seasoned alphas bent under the instinctive force of that revelation. White wolf. Bringer of justice. Not legend. Living. Seraphine staggered backward, face draining of color. "Impossible, you're dead." Elara advanced. One step. Two. Seraphine slashed wildly. Elara dodged. Vast. Silent. She snapped one silver blade in her jaws. Crack. Spat it aside. Seraphine screamed and reached for the second. Too slow. Elara slammed her shoulder into the woman's ribs and sent her sprawling across the floor to the very base of the dais, where she had once watched, Elara chained in the arena. Across the room, Merrick saw the hall kneeling and faltered. That was enough. Kael, half-shifted, black power and muscle and fury, drove him to the ground with one devastating blow. Marble cracked beneath them. Kael's teeth bared inches from Merrick's throat. "Yield," he thundered. Merrick spat blood. "Never." Kael's violet eyes lifted to Elara. Even in wolf form, she understood. Judgment was hers. She shifted back in a wash of heat, white cloak falling around bare shoulders as a frostpine female rushed to cover her. The room remained bowed. Warmth and silence held the hall in a terrible suspended moment. Vanilla, rain, wildflowers filled the air around her like spring entering a crypt. She climbed the dais. Slowly. Seraphine tried to crawl away. Elara caught the back of her jeweled collar and hauled her upright in front of the kneeling court. The woman who had mocked her, cut her, and smiled over her blood now trembled. "Please." Elara's gaze stayed cold. "No." She turned to Marek, pinned under Kael's crushing hand. "For 23 years, Elara decreed, voice carrying to the furthest chandelier, you called me worthless. You chained me, starved me, sold sacred lands, stole children, murdered truth. You called my death noble." Marek glared up, panting. "You are nothing." Kael growled. Elara lifted one hand. Gold-white symbols burned across her skin. Marek's voice died in his throat. "You will never command this kingdom again," she pronounced. "By blood restored and truth revealed, I strip you of office, title, and protection. You will spend the rest of your life in the mines you sold, chained with silver too dull to kill and heavy enough to remind you what you built." The hall trembled with the force of it. Poetic justice. Exact. His own cruelty mirrored. Then she faced Seraphine. The woman's beauty had curdled into fear. "You dressed me as a servant," Elara continued. "You fed me scraps. You scrubbed your floors with my hands until they bled. You called me broken in front of the kingdom." Seraphine fell to her knees. "Mercy." Elara remembered that smile in the tunnel. Her mother begged for mercy. No one gave it. "You will scrub floors," Elara commanded softly, and somehow the softness felt crueler than a scream. "In the orphan sanctuaries, your family emptied. You will clean every threshold with the chains you loved so much wrapped around your wrists. You will work until the children you tried to erase no longer fear the sound of your footsteps." Seraphine broke. Sobbing, shaking, publicly humiliated before the same court she had once ruled through vanity. The nobles watched in stunned silence. Then one elder bowed deeper. Another followed. Then another. Soon the whole hall was on its knees. Kael released Marek to the frostpine guards and rose, bloodied and immense, black-clad and breathing hard. He climbed the dais toward Elara while moonlight washed over them both, white and black, gold and violet, justice and protection united. A remaining captain of the guard, desperate and loyal to Marek, lunged from the side with a hidden silver dagger aimed at Elara's back. Zip of breath. Flash of metal. Kael moved. Too fast to stop. He took the blade in his side instead. Roar. The hall erupted again. Elara whirled. The captain barely had time to gasp before her white power slammed into him like a storm wall. He flew backward through the banquet table in a crash of glass and silver platters. Guards seized him. Kael swayed. Blood spread black-red through his coat. "No," Elara caught him as his weight dipped, her hands hot on his face, panic and rage colliding. "Stay with me." His mouth curved despite the pain. "You command well." "This isn't funny." Wasn't a joke. The wound smoked. Silver again. Always silver. Despair tried one last time to claw up her throat. Not tonight. She pressed both palms over the wound. Gold-white symbols blazed from her skin into his, racing under black cloth and scarred flesh. The bond opened like a floodgate. Warmth poured from her core into him, light, breath, heartbeat, moonfare. The same impossible choice he had once made for her, returned not in blood but in power. Kael sucked in a sharp breath. Violet eyes flared brighter. The silver hissed, then burned away. Gasps echoed through the hall as the king straightened under her hands, life restored by the woman they had called broken. He touched his forehead to hers. For a moment, the whole kingdom disappeared. Only heat remained. Only cedarwood, pine, smoke, and rain-soft wildflowers. Only the bond. His voice brushed her mind, strong now. "Come away with me." She laughed shakily through tears. "There is a kingdom kneeling." "Let them wait." The words landed between them like a promise. Then he turned with her still beside him and faced the court. "Kneel to your queen," Kael commanded. No one resisted. Not one. The hall bowed until foreheads touched stone. Outside, wolves across the palace grounds lifted their muzzles and howled as one. White justice. Black protection. The curse was ending. 3 weeks later, winter finally loosened its grip on the kingdom. Snow still clung to the high ridges, but in the lower valleys the first green shoots had pierced the thawing earth. Streams ran free beneath silver bridges. Children returned to the sanctuary homes rebuilt with royal funds. Mining operations on sacred land had been sealed, their contracts burned in the palace courtyard while the rescued packs watched. Warm sunlight poured across the eastern terrace, where Elara stood in a gown of cream and gold, the old Orlia medallion resting over her heart. The air smelled of damp earth, cedarwood from the palace beams, and her own scent carried on spring wind, vanilla, wildflowers, rain after storm. Below, Merrick's sentence had already begun. No public execution. No glorious death. Just chains. Dust. Labor. The former regent now hauled ore carts in the very mines he had sold, stripped of title, stripped of command, stripped of every polished lie. Reports arrived daily describing blistered hands and silence. No noble comfort, no clean robes, no voice anyone had to obey. Seraphine's punishment proved even more humiliating. The once jeweled darling of court now worked in the orphan sanctuaries under guard, sleeves rolled, wrists ringed in light chain, scrubbing stone thresholds and nursery floors while the children watched without fear. No perfume, no audience, only soap, buckets, and consequences. Every room she cleaned had once held the absence she helped create. Exact mirror punishments. Nothing less. Behind Elara, heavy footsteps sounded across the terrace. She smiled before turning. Kael. Black tunic, open throat, fresh scar at his side where silver had pierced him at the gala, now only a pale line under healed skin. He looked every inch a king, restored, massive, composed, dangerous. But when his violet eyes found her, warmth softened the hard edges no one else ever saw. Cedarwood, pine, smoke. Home. You slipped away from council, he rumbled. She arched a brow. You noticed. I notice everything about reasons. The answer sent a soft heat through her chest. He stopped in front of her, sunlight gilding the scars along his hands. Spring wind stirred his dark hair. Far below, wolves trained in the courtyard. None looked at her with mockery now. None flinched. None feared her power the way tyrants had hoped. They honored it. They honored her. Elara lifted her face to the sun. The valley smells different. It's healing. So am I. Kael's hand rose to her cheek, rough thumb tracing the last faint line from Seraphine's blow. His skin remained hot, always hot, a living contrast to every cold memory she had survived. You were never broken. She held his gaze. Once, those words would have shattered her. Now they settled into place like truth finally reaching its rightful home. I know, she whispered. His mouth curved. Small, rare, real. From the gardens below came the shrieks of laughing pups racing through new grass. One little girl waved up at the terrace, the child from Blackstone, blue bead bracelet bright on her wrist. Elara waved back. No cages. No chains. No fear. Kael slid an arm around her waist and drew her against him. Warmth wrapped her instantly. The bond hummed beneath skin and soul, mind to mind, heart to heart. The steward cleared his throat from the doorway behind them. Your Majesties, the council awaits the spring decrees. Kael did not look away from Elara. Does it? The steward swallowed. Yes, sire. Elara's lips parted with a laugh. We should go. Kael lowered his forehead to hers, voice dropping into that intimate rumble made only for her. Let them wait. She closed her eyes for one perfect heartbeat and kissed him. Not cautious. Not frightened. Certain. The terrace, the palace, the kingdom, all of it could hold for one moment longer while she tasted the man who had bled for her under a cursed moon and the future they had forged from ruin. His kiss was smoke and cedar, and reverence banked beneath hunger. Hers was rain and wildflowers and the first breath after drowning. When they finally broke apart, the world looked different again. Brighter. Come with me, she murmured. He studied her, already knowing. The shift took them both at the terrace edge. Heat flashed. Bones reshaped. Fur burst. A black wolf and a white wolf launched into the spring air together, clearing the lower steps and landing in the new grass below. Pups shrieked in delight, then stood in wonder as the two wolves sprinted across the healing valley, black shadow beside white light, power and justice running shoulder to shoulder beneath a clean blue sky. At the ridge, they stopped and lifted their muzzles. One black, one white. Their dual howl rolled across the kingdom like a promise kept. In the courtyard below, the pack watched. No longer afraid. No longer divided. No longer ruled by falsehood. And as the sound echoed through forest, river, and thawing stone, every wolf who heard it knew the same truth. The curse was broken. And that, my friends, is the story of Elara and Kael. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the worst moments clear the path for something greater. Elara thought she was broken and worthless, but she turned out to be the lost heir who saved a kingdom. It teaches us that your value isn't defined by those who can't see your worth. What do you think? Did Merrick get what he deserved? Would you have chosen execution instead of chains? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to read your theories. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, romance, and instant karma, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow so I can bring you more long stories like this one. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. The council did wait. For exactly 43 minutes. Then the royal steward, pale with duty and terror, found them again in the lower gardens where spring had only just begun to touch the earth. Elara stood barefoot in the grass, one hand buried in the black fur of Kael's wolf while cool wind moved through the budding trees. The air held that delicate balance between seasons, cold lingering in the shade, warmth gathering wherever the sun touched stone. Rain-soft wildflowers and vanilla drifted from her skin. Cedarwood, pine, and smoke wrapped around her from Kael like a living wall. Your Majesties, the steward called carefully, bowing so low his forehead nearly brushed the path. The southern alphas are refusing to sign the restoration decree. Kael shifted in a ripple of heat and shadow, rising human beside her with no trace of embarrassment, only irritation. His dark hair fell over his brow. Violet eyes flashed once. Refusing. The steward swallowed hard. They request proof that Her Majesty's bloodline gives her lawful authority beyond ceremonial recognition. Cold moved through the garden. Not winter's cruelty. Challen. Elara turned slowly toward the palace. The white towers glowed pale gold in the afternoon light, beautiful from a distance, yet crowded with old loyalties and older fear. She could almost smell them from here. Wax, parchment, hidden ambition, expensive oils covering metallic nerves. They still doubt, she murmured. Kael stepped behind her and draped his cloak over her shoulders. Warmth engulfed her instantly. They fear. That too. His hands settled on her waist, large, steady, hot enough to melt every last remnant of snow in her bones. Then let them learn the difference between doubt and disobedience. A month ago, those words from a king might have sounded like threat and iron. Now, held in the shelter of his heat, they sounded like promise. She tilted her head back against his chest. If I walk into that chamber and force them down, I become exactly what Merrick accused us of being. Kael's mouth brushed her temple. No, you become what he was terrified would return. The steward remained bowed several paces away, wisely silent. Elara looked down at her own hands. The faint gold-white lines were quiet beneath her skin now, hidden unless emotion or moonlight called them forth. Yet she could feel them, a pulse just beneath flesh, a waiting. Tell them, she commanded, voice calm and queenly now, that if they need proof, they may witness it in the Hall of Ancestors at sunset. The steward blinked. The hall, Your Majesty. Yes. He bowed deeper, at once. When he had gone, Kael's fingers tightened slightly around her waist. You don't know what's in the hall. No, she turned within his arms and met his violet gaze. But my blood does. For one beat, pride warmed the hard planes of his face so openly it almost stole her breath. Then quieter, he rumbled, I should come with you. You will. I'm men ahead of you. She smiled, and missed the part where I terrify them myself. A low sound, almost a laugh, moved through his chest. It was a rare treasure, that sound. She had started collecting them. By sunset, the entire palace had changed its breathing. Servants hurried through corridors lined with fresh torches. Nobles gathered in murmuring knots beneath vaulted ceilings, every whisper carrying a mix of curiosity and dread. The Hall of Ancestors had not been opened in decades. Some claimed the old royal blood no longer answered there. Others claimed the hall itself chose who entered beneath the moon. Elara walked toward it in a gown of white silk threaded with gold, the Aurelia medallion resting at her throat. Warm candlelight followed her through the long corridor, but cold leaked from the sealed bronze doors ahead, ancient and waiting. Her scent, rain, wildflowers, vanilla, moved before her like a declaration. Kael paced beside her in black formal armor, each step sounding like restrained war. Cedarwood and smoke deepened in the close stone passage. His scarred hand brushed the small of her back once, grounding, protective, gentle in the one way only he ever was. At the doors, 6 Southern Alphas waited alongside the palace council. One of them, a broad, silver-haired male named Dorian, inclined his head the bare minimum required. Your Majesty, he greeted Kael, then looked at Elara with open caution. Lady Elara. The corridor temperature seemed to drop 3 degrees. Kael's expression hardened. Elara touched his wrist once. Stop. Then she faced Dorian herself. You may call me what you call every ruler whose authority you intend to test. A flicker of discomfort crossed the Alpha's face. He bowed lower. My queen. Better. Another female Alpha, older and hawk-eyed, stepped forward. If the stories are true, then the Hall of Ancestors will answer only blood descended from the first crown. Then I suppose, Elara murmured, lifting her chin, we're all about to stop pretending. The bronze doors groaned when she touched them. No guard pulled them open. No servant pushed. At the first brush of her palm, symbols blazed across the metal in white and gold. Locks thudded back one by one from within the walls. Ancient mechanisms awakened with a deep grinding hum. Whispers broke out behind her. The doors parted. Cold air spilled out first, old and clean, carrying dust, moonstone, and something almost like snow fallen on marble centuries ago. Then the chamber revealed itself. The Hall of Ancestors stretched vast and circular beneath a domed ceiling open to the evening sky. The first stars glimmered above. Carved wolves lined the perimeter, white, black, gray, and gold-veined stone, each one bowed around a central dais etched with crescent patterns. The entire floor shimmered faintly as if moonlight lived inside the marble itself. Warm torchlight from the corridor could not master that place. It belonged to colder, older power. Elara stepped inside. Every mark beneath her skin answered. Kael entered at her side, but only until the floor changed color near the dais. There he stopped, glancing down. Black lines had risen under his boots, barring the next ring. Only blood, the hawk-eyed Alpha whispered from the threshold. Kael's jaw flexed. He hated any boundary that kept him from shielding her. Elara looked back once. He gave one sharp nod. Go. She walked alone to the center. The cold beneath her bare soles did not bite. It welcomed. Overhead, the first rise of the moon painted the dome pale silver. Around the room, noble scents sharpened with tension, spiced oils, metallic nerves, polished fear. Through it all, Kael remained her anchor. Cedarwood, pine, smoke, constant. She reached the dais. For a moment, nothing happened. The Southern Alphas exchanged glances. Dorian opened his mouth. Then the medallion at Elara's throat lifted on its own. Gold light poured downward through the chain and struck the carved crescent beneath her feet. The entire hall ignited. White fire raced through the floor in branching lines. The wolf statues lowered their heads with a thunder of grinding stone. One by one, the eyes of the carved ancestors filled with light. Gasps echoed from the doorway. Elara's breath caught as images rose around her. Not illusions exactly, more like memories trapped inside moonstone. A woman in white armor, running through a burning nursery. A black wolf standing over fallen traitors. Silver cups tipped into royal hands. Marek's younger face, hidden in shadow, passing sealed contracts to northern men in a mine tunnel. Her mother. Elara's pulse slammed against her ribs. She saw her mother clearly now, wrapped in servant gray, clutching a newborn against her chest while alarms rang through the palace. Tears streaked the woman's face. She kissed the child's forehead, pressed a gold medallion into a blanket hem. Then another figure stepped into view, a male healer with moonstone beads in his hair. "He'll hide her, wolf," the memory mother whispered desperately. "If they sense her, they'll kill her before dawn." The healer nodded. "The seal will cost her. She'll live. She may never awaken." Her mother's voice broke. "Then let her hate me alive." Elara swayed. Kael surged against the black barrier. "Elara." She lifted one hand to steady herself, eyes locked on the memory. The healer pressed silver and gold fingers to infant skin. Symbols flashed. The baby wailed. White light vanished under flesh like something buried alive. Then the memory fractured into another scene. Marek signing transport orders, Seraphine's father leading mercenaries into sacred mountain land, cages being loaded under tarps while council seals gleamed red in torchlight. A third scene rose. This one froze everyone in the hall. The ancient king before Kael's father, black-haired, violet-eyed, crowned, stood at another blood moon altar beside a white-haired queen wearing the Aurelia seal. Between them, a priestess spoke over a crimson bowl. "When black blood saves white under the blood moon," she intoned, "the severed crown shall mend, justice will return, protection will kneel only to love freely chosen." The image dissolved. Silence devoured the hall. Not a soul moved. Kael stared at the place where the vision had hung, his face stripped bare of everything but stunned recognition. Elara slowly turned toward the gathered alphas and council. Warmth began low in her chest. Not rage. Clarity. "You wanted proof," she declared, voice carrying effortlessly through the glowing chamber. "There it is. My wolf was sealed to hide me from a slaughter ordered by your allies. The conspiracy against the throne began before Kael's exile. The children taken from the mountain packs were not collateral. They were descendants, witnesses, blood to be erased." The hawk-eyed female alpha dropped to one knee first. Then both knees. Dorian followed. One by one, every southern alpha lowered themselves to the moonlit floor. "My queen," Dorian breathed, voice shaken now. "We did not know." Elara descended from the dais slowly. The hall's light dimmed around her but did not disappear. "No," she answered. "You chose not to know. That ends tonight." She stopped at the black boundary, where Kael waited. It vanished beneath her feet. He reached for her immediately, both hands framing her face, heat surging from him like he needed to confirm she was solid. Alive. Here. "You should have warned me," he growled softly. "I didn't know." His thumbs swept once beneath her eyes, catching moisture she had not realized had gathered there. "You looked ready to collapse." "I didn't." Almost. He was close enough now that the hall, the alphas, the prophecy, everything blurred at the edges. Only his scent remained clear. Cedarwood, pine, smoke, safety earned through battle and choice. Dorian cleared his throat from a very respectful distance. "Your Majesties, the restoration decree will be signed." Elara did not look away from Kael. "Good." The hawk-eyed alpha bowed deeper. "And the surviving sanctuary children will be placed under direct royal protection. No pack may move them without your seal." "Also good," Elara murmured. Kael's gaze never left her face. "You're shaking." "It was my mother." Something fierce and wounded flashed in his violet eyes. He tucked her against him immediately, one hand at the back of her head. Warmth closed around her so completely, the cold ancient hall seemed to retreat. "She saved you," he whispered against her hair. "She condemned me to 23 years of believing I was nothing. She gave you 23 years to live long enough to become this." Elara shut her eyes. He always did that. Took the sharpest edge of a truth and turned it until she could survive holding it. Behind them, nobles and alphas maintained reverent silence. No one dared interrupt. After a long moment, Elara drew back and inhaled slowly. Rain, smoke, stone, gold. "We need to issue the decrees tonight." Kael nodded once, then brushed his mouth against her forehead, brief, intimate, scandalous before so many witnesses. "Then let's finish this." The signing lasted hours. Yet no one complained. The restoration decrees were sealed by moonlight and witnessed by all present in the Hall of Ancestors. Sacred valleys returned to pack stewardship. Sanctuary homes placed under royal guard. Silver extraction on burial lands banned permanently. The remaining transport lists triggered immediate raids before dawn. By midnight, 3 more hidden holding sites were discovered and emptied of captive children. The kingdom shifted in a single night. Not healed, but turning. When the last seal cooled and the final witness departed, Elara found herself standing on the western palace balcony with Kael once more. Moonlight washed the stone pale. The night air bit cool against her face, but his cloak and body heat wrapped her in deep warmth. Below them, the capital slept uneasily, as if even in dreams it sensed old foundations moving. Kael leaned against the balustrade, broad shoulders finally lowering a fraction. "You were magnificent." She glanced at him. That almost sounded like praise. "It was. I should mark the calendar." He huffed. Again, almost a laugh. She loved that sound more each time she won it. For a while they simply stood there, watching the moon silver the rooftops. Somewhere in the lower courtyards, wolves howled a slow watch song. Spring wind threaded through the gardens carrying fresh earth and the first night blooms. Then Elara's hand went unconsciously to her stomach. Not pain. A pulse. Small, strange, new. Kael noticed instantly. Of course he did. "What is it?" She frowned, searching herself through the bond. The sensation vanished, then returned. A faint answering warmth beneath her palm, no larger than a heartbeat echoing underwater. "I don't know," she whispered. His entire body went still. "Elara." She looked up. His violet eyes had changed. Not fear exactly, not hope exactly, something deeper, wilder. "Can you feel that?" she asked. Instead of answering, he stepped in front of her and covered her hand with his. Heat surged beneath both their palms. There. Again. A tiny flutter. A spark. Kael inhaled sharply. The night seemed to pause. Elara's mouth parted. "That's impossible." "Not after forbidden blood under a blood moon," he murmured, voice gone rough. "Nothing about us has been possible." The warmth under her hand pulsed once more, then settled deep, quiet and hidden. Not enough for certainty. Not yet, but enough to change the shape of the air between them. Her eyes lifted to his. For once, the Alpha King had no command ready. No strategy. No armor. Only awe. She laughed softly, almost disbelieving, and tears gathered before she could stop them. "If this is real, it will be protected," he vowed instantly, the old predator returning with holy focus. "By every claw I have, every law, every drop of blood left in me." Emotion swelled too large for words. So she rose onto her toes and kissed him. Longer this time. Deeper. Moonlight silvered the scars on his hands as they framed her face. His mouth moved with reverence first, then hunger, then something so profound it made the bond sing. Rain and wildflowers tangled with cedarwood and smoke. Cool night air brushed her skin while his body kept her warm enough to forget the world. When they finally broke apart, Kael rested his brow to hers. "We'll tell no one yet," he murmured. She nodded, Not until we know. His thumb stroked beneath her lower lip. The council will be furious. A smile curved her mouth. Let them wait. This time his laugh came fully. Low, rich, rare. It rolled out over the balcony and into the spring night like another kind of victory. Far below, the palace wolves answered with a howl. And somewhere deep beneath the old stones of the kingdom, where prophecy had slept for generations, gold light stirred once more.